Hello and welcome to Serdd's Audio Fanfictions. Sorry about that. I am once again having fucking technical difficulties. Okay, but as long as that looks like my mic is coming through loud and clear, if at any point the music is too loud, I don't know about it, so please let me know. I'm not even 100% sure that there was music attached to the opening intro like it is supposed to, but didn't. So mad. I shouldn't say originally, just this past week or last week, yes, so 2 weeks, these past 2 weeks, I have been trying to upgrade my setup a little bit and get an actual desktop. That did not work out. So that's going back today. Hey, Sam, how are you doing? How is it's been a little while, I feel. How's your summer going so far? Summer vacation is super exciting. But yeah, so we have this, our regular setup. I hope everything's coming through. I have no idea if there's any kind of music. Hopefully that will be fixed at some point before I die. So frustrated. The intro was, oh good, so there was music to it. Okay, excellent. Whew, thank goodness. Thank goodness. It was just me. I'm okay with it being just me as long as other people can hear it. And okay. So we will be continuing on with chapter. How are you making money? It's better than me. If you have a secret other than getting a second, third, is it third? It would be a third job for me. Yeah. If there's a secret to it other than getting a third job, I am all for it. I would love to know. There was something that I wanted to share, and now that we've already started, I can't. Ridiculous. Or maybe I can. Who? But yeah, so we'll be starting off with chapter 59. You're working. Oh, I'm so sorry. Me too. I'd rather not. Can't you just pay me without me having to do anything for it? That'd be nice. That'd be so nice. Not very likely, but it'd be very nice. So I have been working on upgrading or changing the whole layout of the library. I originally wanted it to look very different than what it does. This right here is what I would do. It looks like your standard library. But what I use mainly for streaming is, of course, I'm using it to read Danmei, and so I wanted a library with a more kind of Asian aesthetic. I'm not good with like fine details or being overly creative. I feel like there's a lot of people a lot more creative than me, but there are some things that I've put together, and I wanted to let you see what they look like now and see if maybe it might be something, or let me know which you like best so that I can, if we want to go ahead with it, I should say. Very long way of saying, tell me if you like it. So I'm just putting all the little pieces here in front. And there's this. Okay. And this is the last one. Now, I'm going to show you these options, or what I'm thinking about and what the new setup will look like. Yui is not in them. He will be. So just keep that in mind. The only difference will be the Be Right Back page, which right now looks like this. And it will not look like that. But I'll show you what I'm thinking of so far, what I have. Let me just make sure. I like this setup. I like that it's obviously a library. but I don't know yet. Okay, so I think I've got all my pieces. I don't, but I can. Okay. Okay, so let me pull this over here. And we'll go over to reading so you can see my screen. Don't worry about this. I can't put it down because I've got, I think I've only got a map behind this. Okay, we're going to minimize that. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking for the new reading screen. So what you're seeing right now, it would look something like this. Yeah, something like that. And I don't know. I like it. So this right here, you see this watercolor kind of with the waves on it, with the more Japanese aesthetic. That would stay even over top of the words. When it's on a white page, you really can't see it. Let me see if I can prove that and not just say it. Yeah. Nope. What's this? That's just blank. I don't have it on just white. Okay, so anyways, yes. So this would be our reading screen and then reading and watching through here. But what I really love are the in-between pages. So this is the Be Right Back page. Oops. Work with me here. It's not working, so I gotta go the long way. And this. Of course it stopped. Why did it stop working? Jesus, what is wrong with this? There it is. So this would be our Be Right Back page. A little different. And then going into our starting soon, which is really the one that I wanted to start with. This would be our starting soon page. And then down. And then the chat would go right here. And the event list would go somewhere in the middle here, but that would be our starting page. And then for the just chatting bit, I'm thinking, where is it here? Something like this. And then it moves. As you can see, I'm going with a slight dragon theme, because to me, nothing says mystical library like dragons. So yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. I know it's not maybe as, I'm not sure. I think it might be a little bit more homey than the one that we currently have. I don't know. That's what I'm leaning towards. That's what I'm looking to set it up. We'll see how it works. I also have a different transition. So right now it's the shoji screens, these. I have a different version of it. And so yeah, so that's what I've been working on this week, as well as trying to get the computer set up, which we will be sending back tomorrow. So yeah. All right. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Oh, knowing me, there's probably something I forgot. And that's what it was. I have started reading another Danmei in my off time. So, you know, between 11:30 and 12 midnight before I go to bed. And it's surprisingly really good. It is absolutely ridiculous. And if it hadn't been recommended to me, I probably would not have ever picked this up. And it took me, I had to get through past the first chapter to really understand how funny it is. So I'm not going to pronounce it right. It's another fish one, which is probably why it was recommended to me. Let me pull it up here. It is this. It's another fish one, and it's very funny, and it's very cute. And there were parts of it where I'm going, oh my goodness. Like the main character, Li Yu, is even more shameless than Wei Wuxian. Shameless. But he doesn't mean to be, which makes it all the funnier. Like he doesn't realize it. It's so cute. There it is. Okay. The disabled tyrant's pet palm fish. Let me pull it up. The disabled tyrant's pet palm fish. This one. Honestly, it was the cute cover that made me just like, oh, consider it. It's so good. It's so funny. I very highly recommend it. And let me just read the synopsis because I have to vouch for this one because I wasn't going to pick it up because it sounds ridiculous. One day, Li Yu transmigrated into a fish. Furthermore, this fish even had a master. This master was the sinister and terrifying mute tyrant from a novel. The system gave Li Yu a task. If he wanted to change back into a human, he had to obtain the tyrant's heart. Li Yu, full of tears. System, please wake up. I'm only a fish. He can't even speak. How can we interact? System, stop jabbering. To take down the tyrant, you must attack his heart. Can I ask, does the tyrant have a heart? Li Yu did his best to blow bubbles at the tyrant, but ended up being captured by the tyrant and raised carefully in a huge, ginormous fish tank. The life of a fish was filled with all sorts of blessings. Every day, Mu Tianqi watched the little carp swim around happily, pondering when this fish would finally transform into a human. The little carp didn't know. It didn't know that the tyrant had no heart. It's just that he already gave it away to the little carp that accidentally saved his life. So, it is very, very funny. It is very, very cute. It is very, very sweet. This one where they call a tyrant, he's more just, he's mute, so he doesn't speak. He can't speak. And he's been picked on his whole life, and it comes off with a certain kind of coldness. But yeah, it's very, very funny. I very highly recommend it. I did see that tag before, but I wasn't quite sure. But yes, I always love the tag for the doting love interest. That's one of my absolute favorites. This is absolutely a comedy. There's, at least that I've gotten to, and I've read up to, in the past few days, I think I'm up to chapter 46 or 47. I've been reading. And I've encountered no angst, and it's so cute, and it's so great. And the only thing need to know is that Li Yu loves to eat, so he is entirely food motivated, even as a person, entirely food motivated, and he thinks he's wonderful, and he thinks he himself is gorgeous as a human, so it's all the kinds of ridiculous. Very highly recommend. And this is on Chrysanthemum Garden. It is by far my favorite Danmei site, and I very highly recommend check this out. And yes, the disabled tyrant's pet palm fish. Very cute. I will put the link in the description when I post this. So yeah. I don't know what it is with me. I seem to really like the fish stories. I don't know. But yes, it's very good. It's very cute. Okay. How long have I nabbered? Ooh, up to 20 minutes. I'm doing well. Okay. Alrighty. I have discovered a new availability on my Stream Deck, so we are going to try that for now. Right. Moving right along. Let's get to it. Alrighty. Starting with this is, oops, wait, marker that. Chapter 59. But don't let him down. And you can hear me? Okay, we're okay. Yeah, okay. Since Lin Qingyu was promoted to the 5th rank imperial physician, he and Chu Jingdi would go to the emperor every day to diagnose his pulse. Though he was able to go in and out of the emperor's sleeping chambers, so long as he got even a little bit closer to the Eastern Palace. So long as he got even a little bit close to the Eastern Palace, the guards on duty would be on high alert. But as long as he and Shen Huishi were within the palace compound, there would be the chances for them to meet. Chu Jingdi was getting old, and it was inevitable that his body would not be able to keep up with everything that he wanted to do. For the past few days, he had been suffering from a cold and had taken leave to recuperate at home. Lin Qingyu was the only imperial physician serving the emperor for the time being. That night, the emperor's headache returned. Lin Qingyu happened to be on duty and was invited to the emperor's palace. Tonight, the one serving the emperor in bed was the same young man Lin Qingyu had seen last time. Though said to be serving in bed, with the emperor's body sick, he couldn't actually do anything, and he simply let the young man warm his bed and pour him tea. Lin Qingyu applied acupuncture for the emperor, and the emperor's headache eased. When he opened his eyes, he saw Lin Qingyu and his male pet standing beside the dragon bed, side by side. The male pet blushed and whispered, "Your Majesty." Oh, I didn't like that voice for him. Your Majesty. Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, okay. Ugh, no, that sounded bad too. Let's see here. He is, what did it say here? Blushed and whispered. I don't know what a seductive young male voice would sound like. Your Majesty. Lin Qingyu, however, was calm and composed as ever, said, "Autumn is fast approaching. With its coming, the yang energy will gradually sink, and the yin energy will gradually grow. The emperor's prescription must also be changed to match the way of the yin and yang. This official will return to the imperial hospital to prepare a new prescription for your Majesty." Flattering, maybe cocky? I thought maybe too. But then it was said that he blushed and whispered. I don't know. The emperor looked at him. Himself not knowing what muscle he'd pulled wrong, he said, I have a pen and paper here. Wu can write it here and show me when you are done." Lin Qingyu paused and said, "Yes." The emperor sat up with the help of his male pet. He looked at the beauty in official uniform writing under the lamp. Long eyelashes, thick like butterfly wings. Even though his temperament was cold, it was difficult to overlook the flirtatious look seen between his brows and corners of his eyes. In particular, the tear-shaped mole under his eyes made the emperor's heart itch. Fuck off. No. You dirty, disgusting old man. F no. But itch was all it did. He was old and had been sick for so long. He had not added a new person to his harem for a long time. Good. When he gets better, maybe he can invite more beauties. It was a pity that he didn't have enough energy now. So after Lin Qingyu finished drawing up the receipt, he allowed him to withdraw. Lin Qingyu followed Xu Yang out of the sleeping chambers. Looking back at the bright yellow dragon curtains, his eyes grew dark and cold. It seemed that even without the emperor forcing marriage upon Gu Fuzhou, sooner or later, there would have also been reason for Lin Qingyu to set his hands upon his majesty. I hope that means to choke him. Xiaocheng heard that the emperor was ill, and to show his filial piety, he came late at night and happened to run into Lin Qingyu, who had been exiting the sleeping chambers. Lin Qingyu glanced at him, and his eyes fell on Shen Huishi behind him. Shen Huishi also looked back at him, and then Xiaocheng said coldly, "Have you looked enough?" Shen Huishi quickly retracted his gaze. "The subordinate dares not." Xiaocheng smiled. "Why wouldn't you dare? Xiao Qingyu was born with a face that drives men crazy. You should look more if given the chance. You might not have the chance to see it again in the future." Saying so, he gave a "humph" and followed Xu Yang into the sleeping chambers. Another eunuch came with a lantern. "Imperial Physician Lin, I will take you back to the Imperial Hospital." Just know that all eunuchs will have that voice. Shen Huishi could only stand watch outside. When Lin Qingyu brushed past him, he whispered, "Find time to come to my house to find me." Shen Huishi was startled and subconsciously glanced in the direction of the sleeping chamber. He then gave a low, Shen Huishi didn't make Lin Qingyu wait for long, and 3 days later, late into the night, he appeared in Lin Qingyu's residence like a ghost. Lin Qingyu was dispensing medicine at his table, and as soon as he looked up, he saw Shen Huishi standing behind the window. "Imperial Physician Lin." Lin Qingyu opened the window. "Come in." Shen Huishi was a little nervous. "I can't stay for long. If his husband... No. No. Wrong. No. If His Highness finds out that I still have contact with you, Imperial Physician Lin, what have you sought me out for?" Lin Qingyu said, "I have found the person you were looking for." Shen Huishi was stunned and said excitedly, "You mean the owner of that jade tablet?" Lin Qingyu nodded lightly. "Come out." With a cloak, the door to the room adjacent to the study slowly opened, and Zhu Yongxin walked out. "Young master." Shen Huishi's eyes widened, and he said in disbelief, "Judiga?" Diga. Yeah, Diga. Why did it... Maybe I said it too quickly. Judiga? Yeah, that's better. Zhu Yongxin was a double agent. Not many people in the Heavenly Prison sect knew about it. Shen Huishi was one of them. After Shen Huishi entered the Tanji camp, he also looked for Zhu Yongxin. He did not expect to be met with news of his death. "Judiga, you're not..." Once again, seeing a man you once thought dead, even a stern, powerful man's face would redden. "It's really you. You're not dead?" In contrast, Zhu Yongxin seemed a lot more unperturbed. There was a deep look in his eyes. He said, "I am indeed not dead. How can I die before I avenge this enormous debt of blood?" "Avenge?" Shen Huishi was at a loss. "The Red Fang sect, which destroyed the Heavenly Prison sect, was wiped out by the Tenji camp 3 years ago. It was by the order of His Royal Highness the Crown Prince himself." "The Crown Prince? Ha!" Zhu Yongxin said with a grin. "How could a wicked sect in the Qingya sect area destroy the Emperor's eagle and dog overnight? Young master,
Have you never had your doubts? It was a traitor to the Heavenly Prison Sect, one who had defected to the Red Fang Sect. That was how the Heavenly Prison Sect...
Zhu Yongxin interrupted him.
The Red Fang Sect had long been secretly recruited by the Imperial Court. That bloody massacre had also been deliberately set up by the Imperial Court. It was not that there were traitors in the Heavenly Prison Sect, but that the Imperial Court had betrayed the Heavenly Prison Sect. Under the mask of those who so-called Red Fang Sect members were the faces of the members of the Tanji camp.
Shen Huixi's face lost all color.
The Imperial Court? The Imperial Court? The Heavenly Prison Sect has always been loyal to the Imperial Court. Why would the Imperial Court...
Lin Qingyu said,
Was the Heavenly Prison Sect loyal to the Imperial Court? Or were they loyal to the Crown Prince? If it was the latter, who do you think the Emperor would have stood it for it? If it was the latter, do you think the Emperor would have stood for it?
There was only one last hope in Shen Huixi's eyes, and he murmured,
Then it was the Emperor. Was it the Emperor who wanted to kill us? Yes, the Emperor wanted to move against us, but his good son knew very well his Imperial father's will. Before the Emperor could, the Crown Prince dealt with us first to gain the Emperor's favor heart, and win the Crown Prince that he has longed for.
Pain coursed through Shen Huixi's body, and he could barely stand. A light medicinal fragrance hit, and he felt his arm being supported. When he raised his eyes, Lin Qingyu's face appeared in his field of vision.
Impossible.
Shen Huixi grasped Lin Qingyu's arm.
His Royal Highness wouldn't do this. Imperial Physician Lin. Are you surprised?
Lin Qingyu said in a low voice.
Is this not something Xiao Chang would do?
Shen Huixi shook his head.
Evidence! I want evidence!
Zhu Yongxin took out a half-broken mask from a sackcloth pouch and threw it on the table.
This is what I found on an assassin from the Tanji camp after the destruction of the Heavenly Prison Sect.
The mask was green-faced and long-toothed. It was a mask exclusively used by the Red Fang Sect. It was stained with old, dried blood. Shen Huixi's eyes felt like they'd been stabbed, but it was it was as though blood would flow from them. No worries, you go enjoy. We'll see you later, Sammy.
Huixi, look at me.
See yas.
Huixi, look at me.
Shen Huixi was momentarily stunned. He hadn't heard anyone call him that for far too long, and he thought of his father and brother. They used to call him that. Lin Qingyu's eyes had a captivating power.
You also had a lot of doubts about what happened back then, didn't you? How did the powerful Heavenly Prison Sect get destroyed by some sect from the Jinghu? How was Xiao Cheng able to appear immediately after the incident and manage to save you? After the Heavenly Prison Sect was destroyed, did Xiao Cheng treat you so very well that infatuation and affection was born in your heart, until the King of the North asked to marry Princess Zhengchun?
Oh, sorry. Uh, I'm not sure who this is.
You. Do you still not understand?
There was a dead silence in the study. A gust of wind blew through, making the windows creak. Shen Huishi startled as though waking from a big dream. He suddenly pushed Lin Qingyu away and turned to leave. Lin Qingyu said coldly,
Where are you going? Are you going to confront Xiao Qiang? Who do you think you are? A shadow guard whose entire sect he killed, but is still willing to lay down his life for him, even willing to take off his clothes for him to vent his desires on. Why would he tell you the truth? He lied to you once. Why can he not lie to you a second time? What is it that you What is it that you expect to hear from him?
Shen Huishi froze in place, both his hands clenched into fists shaking.
If I were you, I wouldn't give him the chance to argue.
Lin Qingyu slowed down.
You said that I always look down on you. It's because I hate people who hold themselves cheap.
Shen Huishi flew out the window and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Lin Qingyu had done everything he needed to do. All they could do now was wait. No matter how Xiao Qiang looked down on Shen Huishi, he trusted him very much. There was lots of ways for Shen Huishi to assassinate Xiao Qiang and get away unscathed. How he could strike Xiao Qiang while he was sleeping and slash directly at his neck. Or while Xiao Qiang was reading his reports, he could come from behind, cover his mouth, and strangle his neck. Lin Qingyu could help as well. If Shen Huishi were to seek out his help, he could get a poison to put in Xiao Qiang's tea. Lin Qingyu would choose the most suitable option for Xiao Qiang. Just imagining these scenes made Lin Qingyu feel extremely happy.
Shen Huishi, don't let me down.
Another night on shift, when Hu Ji came back from a doctor's visit, he saw Lin Qingyu playing with an urn. He leaned over curiously and looked at it, asking,
Imperial Physician Lin, what is this? Golden silkworm goo.
Hu Ji saw the golden multi-legged bugs in the urn and quickly backed away.
Why are you raising such things?
Lin Qingyu put the lid on the urn and said, downplaying the matter,
Its wings can be used as medicine.
Hu Ji forced out a laugh.
I see. Did you just come from Silijian?
Lin Qingyu asked.
Did you get any news?
News? Hu Ji thought for a while.
Oh, I heard from the eunuch who delivers flowers to the Eastern Palace that His Highness the Crown Prince has been moody and short-tempered these past 2 days. It seems the shadow guard who often follows him around has suddenly disappeared.
As expected. Someone as stubborn as Shen Huishi would need time to fully accept this matter. No one knows, though, what conclusions he has come to after these past 2 days of thinking. In Hui's refusal of the monarch, Shen Huishi will put a knife to Xiao Qing's neck after knowing the truth. Now that the truth Now that the truth he has learned was even more cruel, shouldn't his actions be even more pleasing to the eye? That night, the palace was surprisingly calm. During the second half of the night, the imperial physicians on duty in the imperial hospital all dozed off. Under the moonlight, a palace maid stumbled into the imperial hospital, breaking the tranquility. She was almost crying as she said, "Imperial physician! Imperial physician to the Eastern Palace!" Everyone was startled awake, and they all stood up, one after the other. Lin Qingyu, though, remained sitting, his eyebrows slightly raised. Why were they still calling for an imperial physician? Could it be that Xiao Cheng could still be saved? Everyone knew that His Highness the Crown Prince has always been in good health. So urgently calling for a doctor in the middle of the night, he must be suffering from a sudden illness. The palace maid was so flustered, presumably, his condition must be serious. Hu Qi was the chief physician for the Eastern Palace, and he did not dare to slack off at this moment. Medicine box on his back, he turned to leave. Lin Qingyu stopped him. Imperial Physician Hu. Hu Qi. Imperial Physician Hu. Sorry. Hu Qi said anxiously, "Is there something the matter, Imperial Physician Lin?" Lin Qingyu hesitated for a moment and said, "It's fine. You should go." In addition to Hu Ji, many of the imperial physicians went with him as well. Lin Qingyu was the imperial physician personally assigned to the emperor, and he had to remain in the imperial hospital on standby in case the emperor needed him. Hu Ji and the others were out all night, and even though it was already dawn, none of them came back. The Eastern Palace remained brightly lit throughout the night. People could only be seen entering, but no one was coming out. The Eastern Palace seemed to be blocked, and Lin Qingyu could not wait for any news. At Qianxi, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., Lin Qingyu ended his shift with a heavy feeling. As soon as he went through the palace gate, he heard someone calling him. "Imperial Physician Lin!" Gu Fuzhou was wearing his official military uniform. His appearance at the gate of the palace at this hour, he must be heading to court. Lin Qingyu walked quickly to him. "General." Gu Fuzhou appeared careless and sloppy. He didn't seem to be fully awake. "You must be hungry after spending all night on duty. I've prepared some food for you. Once we're in the carriage, you should eat it while it's hot." Lin Qingyu took the food box handed over by Gu Fuzhou. "Thank you, General, for your consideration." Seeing that Lin Qingyu's expression wasn't good, Gu Fuzhou's remaining sleepiness disappeared at once. He lowered his voice and asked, "What's wrong? Did Shen Huishi make a move already?" "He did, but he must still have had reservations. Otherwise, with his skill, how could Xiao Qiang not have been killed with one hit?" Lin Qingyu closed his eyes and endured, holding the food box Gu Fuzhou gave him tightly in his arms. If Xiao Qiang is lucky enough to make it out alive... Gu Fuzhou pondered for a moment. Then his brows smoothed out and he smiled. "Let's not talk about whether Xiao Qiang will make it out alive or not. We don't know that yet. Even if he is lucky enough to survive, then we'll just have to work hard. I'll help you think of a better way." Gu Fuzhou raised his hand and used his broad palm to cover the back of Lin Qingyu's head. "Don't worry. It's no big deal. Go back quickly and head to bed. Remember to eat something first. I'll come to you after morning court." Hydrate. You know, it must be said that I'm really having a hard time figuring this whole thing out. All I want to do for a living is to read these fanfics and these books and do voices and do narration. That's all I want to do as a job, not a hobby, as a job. But I don't know how to make money as a podcaster or a VTuber without sacrificing my content. And by that I mean like adding ads into the middle of it, or I don't know. I have to admit, I'm exhausted, but to have two jobs and then to do the streaming and then the podcast and all of that on top of it, I don't know what I'm doing wrong or what I should be doing. How do you make money? How do you make a living? And not a big living, just a living. How do you make a living? How do you support yourself and your dog by doing this? I admit I'm at a loss. I don't know. If anyone out there has the answers, I'm all ears. Chapter 60.
I'm not big at all. You don't need to endure.
Well, that's quite that's quite a statement. Okay. I don't know why are my eyes bringing up that? I don't know why I felt that was a Gufu Joe voice or a statement, but it's funny. Lin Qingyu had no appetite, but still listened to Gufu Joe and opened the box of food in the carriage. On the top layer was freshly baked biscuits, golden, crispy, and steaming. Lin Qingyu picked up a biscuit and ate them in small bites as he reorganized in his mind the things that had happened last night. If he hadn't known the ins and outs of the whole thing in advance, he would definitely have thought Xiaocheng really was suffering from a sudden illness. Despite such a big event, the palace guards hadn't made any moves. The crown prince was attacked by an assassin. Shouldn't they be searching the entire palace? Why had they simply blocked any news from coming out of the Eastern Palace? How did Shen Huishi succeed in attacking Xiaocheng? Did he escape successfully? And where was he now? Lin Qingyu knew that overthinking was useless. For now, the only plan was to wait and watch for changes. That afternoon, Gufu Zhou rushed to his house. This time, he didn't climb over the wall and instead walked straight through the main entrance. When Huan Tong saw the god of war he so admired, his eyes shone and his hands trembled as he served tea. Gufu Zhou assumed a reserved and unsmiling expression, asking Huan Tong with a straight face if he wanted his autograph. Asshole. He's such a troll. Lin Qingyu couldn't help but admire how Gufu Zhou was still in the mood to tease at a time like this. He sent the confused Huan Tong away and asked,
"How is the situation in the palace?"
Gufu Zhou took a sip of tea and said,
"At morning court, Xiaocheng was absent due to illness, and the Prime Minister presided over the meeting. On the surface, everything else seemed the same as usual, but the atmosphere in the palace was obviously not right. It felt as though a rising wind forebodes a coming storm.
Lin Qingyu asked.
Illness? Exactly how ill? Is Xiao Chang still clear-headed?
Gufu Zhou said,
I don't know.
The many imperial physicians who had gone last night had not returned, indicating that Xiao Chang was seriously injured and that his life was hanging by a thread. Who ordered the blockade of news and arranged his substitution at morning court? The emperor? Gufu Zhou went on and said,
I asked the guards on duty in the palace, and they also haven't received any news last night. They also haven't heard about any assassin. To sum up, whether it was Xiao Chang or the emperor, neither of them probably wants the whole city to learn of this incident.
Lin Qingyu nodded in agreement. Although the emperor's condition has improved, he was still only able to read reports in his sleeping chambers. Discuss issues, making decisions on major matters, and other such things were still left to Xiao Chang. No, I'll stay here. With the emperor's current state, if something were to happen to the crown prince responsible for supervising the country, the ministers would be left without a leader. The government will be destabilized and the country will be thrown into turmoil. If he were emperor, he too would choose to suppress the news of this incident and then send secret agents to investigate secretly. The more Lin Qingyu thought about it, the more irritable he felt. He rubbed his temples and said, If Xiao Chang had just been killed on the spot, the situation wouldn't be so troublesome. Couldn't Shen Huishi have been a bit more decisive, even just this once? It might not be that he'd gone soft-hearted. There may have been other circumstances at the time. No, that wasn't him at all.
It might not be that he'd gone soft-hearted. There may have been other circumstances at the time.
Gufu Zhou smiled.
Qingyu, do you know how to deduce using scenario reproduction?
He's such a troll, and I love him. Lin Qingyu had never heard of it, but he could more or less guess what Gufu Zhou wanted to express.
How do you want to do it?
Don't give him that option. Gufu Zhou pulled Lin Qingyu to stand up, eager to try it.
Think of yourself as Xiao Chang, and think of me as Shen Huishi. Let's reenact what may have happened that night. Maybe it can help you clear your mind.
Lin Qingyu sat back down.
Boring. Then I'll play Xiao Chang and you play Shen Huishi?
Without waiting for Lin Qingyu to mutter another boring, Gufu Zhou sat down on the bunk, glanced at Lin Qingyu, and did a remarkably accurate impression of Xiao Chang.
Still struck dumb? What? I haven't seen you for a few days, and now you've forgotten how to serve me in bed?
Lin Qingyu. You asshole. He's gonna get beaten for this. I can just see it now. Gufu Zhou's original intention was to make Lin Qingyu relax, but there was no helping it if he wouldn't go along. Just as he was thinking of another way to coax the other, he heard Lin Qingyu say,
Shen Huishi has been missing for 2 days. Shouldn't Xiao Chang ask him where he'd gone first?
Gufu Zhou curled his lips into a smile and changed his words.
Where have you been these past 2 days?
Lin Qingyu walked slowly to the bed, thinking about what Shen Huishi could have possibly said and done. Since Shen Huishi failed to kill Xiao Cheng with a single strike, it was very likely that he had still gotten Xiao Cheng a chance, given it. Sorry, thinking. It was very likely that he had still given Xiao Cheng a chance to quibble.
I have something to ask you. I hope you can tell me the answer.
Gufu Zhou narrowed his eyes.
First, tell Gu where you have gone.
Lin Qingyu pursed his lips and said nothing, a storm brewing in his eyes. Suddenly, something clamped around his waist. Gufu Zhou had grabbed him around the waist and pulled him to the bed. Lin Qingyu wanted to struggle, but felt that this was indeed a move that Xiao Cheng would pull. So he let Gufu Zhou press him down. Gufu Zhou supported his body with one hand and pinched Lin Qingyu's face with the other. He said coldly,
I haven't seen you for 2 days. You've got some temper. I asked you a question. Are you deaf or stupid? Did you not hear?
Gufu Zhou didn't put his weight on Lin Qingyu, but simply pressed him down with his hand, without much of any force behind it. Lin Qingyu could easily break free, just like Shen Huishi could easily break free from Xiao Cheng. But would Shen Huishi have broken free? Obedience to Xiao Cheng's orders was an instinct engraved in his bones, and his body has long been conditioned to satisfy a man's desires in bed. It might take some time before Shen Huishi was able to break through the shackles and resist his instincts. Lin Qingyu didn't struggle, sinking back deeper into the bed. He didn't know if Shen Huishi would shrink, but he himself wanted to create a bit more distance between himself and Gufu Zhou. Although they had struggled before, it was the first time for them to be in bed like this, in this one above the other position. Looking at Gufu Zhou from this angle, he could see Gufu Zhou's Adam apple and sharp chin. His own figure was too different from Gufu Zhou's. His whole person was shrouded in the breath of another man. The feeling of domination and control made him inexplicably flustered.
Let's go!
Let's go!
Still not talking. Very well.
Gufu Zhou's breathing gradually became messy.
It doesn't matter. Gu has a way to get you to speak.
After speaking, Gufu Zhou stopped moving. Lin Qingyu forced himself to remain composed and asked,
What's in your way?
Gufu Zhou looked down at the teardrop mole at the corner of Lin Qingyu's eye. He calmed himself and said with a smile,
500 words are omitted here. He probably pulled some evil tricks of you, taking advantage of you, messing with you until your clothes are in disarray, your hair scattered haphazardly.
Out of respect, he wouldn't mess with Lin Qingyu's clothes, but it shouldn't be too out of line to play with his hair. Gufu Zhou's hand touched Lin Qingyu's hair, and he took off the hair clasp that he was wearing. His black hair was scattered like satin and hung down on Lin Qingyu's shoulders, adding a touch of glamour to him. Gufu Zhou put the hair clasp on the pillow and said,
At this time, Shen Huishi must have been thinking about the heavenly prison sect, but his body was insulted by Xiao Cheng. The servility he had cultivated for many years was finally broken. He had awakened, and he wanted to resist.
This emotional change was reasonable. Lin Qingyu tried to push Gufu Zhou away, but was held down even more forcefully by Gufu Zhou.
What are you resisting for? After doing it so many times, are you still afraid?
What a prick. Not Gufu Zhou, Xiaocheng. Gufu Zhou said in a deep voice.
There's nothing to be afraid of. I'm not big at all. There's no need for you to bear anything.
Small penis joke. I love how he just got that in there. That's pretty good. After speaking, he couldn't hold back and even laughed out loud.
Sorry. I broke character.
Lin Qingyu put his hands on Gufu Zhou's chest, raised his eyebrows, and said,
Would Xiaocheng say that about himself? But say the opposite, and that should... Would Xiaocheng say that about himself? But say the opposite, and that should be about right. Don't worry about these details. Don't worry about these details, Gufu Zhou whispered. Let's continue.
Lin Qingyu's eyes darkened. He turned over and sat on Gufu Zhou's back. He picked up the hair clasp by the pillow and pressed it against his throat.
3 years ago, how was the heavenly prison sect destroyed?
Gufu Zhou put away his smile and said in shock.
Did someone say something to you? Shen Huishi, if you dare lay a hand on me, I won't spare you. I'm just asking. Was it the Red Fang sect? Or the Tenji camp that fought the heavenly prison sect that night?
Gufu Zhou gritted his teeth and said,
Where did you hear this from? Tell me. I just want the truth.
The truth, Gufu Zhou sneered.
The truth is that you should have gone down with the Yellow Springs along with the rest of the heavenly prison sect. It was I who saved you. I did everything to let you live. What else do you want?
Lin Qingyu imagined himself as Shen Huishi and gradually lost himself in his role.
So, it was all true. It was the Tenjin camp. It was you!
Gufu Zhou grabbed Lin Qingyu's wrist and said sternly,
An assassin organization in the imperial court, having lost the trust of the emperor, will surely die. No one could have saved them, not even I. That I could save you is already... Shut up!
Lin Qingyu exerted strength in his hand, and his hair clasp almost pierced Gufu Zhou's throat.
I will never trust you again. Go to hell!
At the climax of the play, Huan Tong's voice, so out of tune with the situation, suddenly came from outside the door.
Young master, it's time to eat. Will General Gu be staying for the meal as well?
The two looked at each other. Gufu Zhou said,
Could it be that Shen Huishi had also been interrupted? It's possible.
Lin Qingyu got off Gufu Zhou.
Shen Huishi panicked and made a slip. He didn't have time to completely frag him. Why do you sound more and more like you came from my hometown?
Gufu Zhou was too lazy to move and maintained his previous posture.
But these are just speculations. I'm afraid that only Shen Huishi and Xiaocheng actually know what happened that night. We'll just have to wait. There'll be news.
Lin Qingyu pondered.
People in the Eastern Palace are the most tight-lipped. If we want news, the only possible sources are Hu Ji or Xiao Xiongxi.
Gufu Zhou asked,
Who's Xiao Xiongxi? A eunuch in the Imperial Palace. A lot of the information I know I got from him.
Gufu Zhou joked.
With such a loose name, no wonder he's called Xiao Xiongxi.
Lin Qingyu. Huan Tong, who still hadn't gotten a response outside, asked again.
Young master, are you in there?
Lin Qingyu asked Gufu Zhou.
Are you staying for dinner? Yes,
Gufu Zhou said lazily.
I can finish off 3 bowls of rice in one meal now, so ask Huan Tong to prepare more meat.
Lin Qingyu still had his long hair loose. He instructed Huantong, keeping the door closed between them. There was no mirror in the study, so he tried several times but failed to tie his long hair. He couldn't help complaining.
We might have been reproducing the scene, but did you have to mess with my hair?
Gufu Zhou smiled and said,
Sorry, I couldn't hold back. Here, let me help.
Lin Qingyu sat at the table and let Gufu Zhou fiddle with his hair. He suddenly thought of something and said,
By the way, let me feel your abdominal muscles.
Gufu Zhou was a little surprised, but also a little gratified.
Imperial Physician Lin actually asked to touch my abs. Come, no need to be polite, feel free.
Lin Qingyu touched it a couple of times and said,
It wasn't just my imagination just now. What do you mean?
Lin Qingyu jokingly said,
Your abdominal muscles really aren't that tight anymore.
Gufu Zhou immediately on high alert, and he touched it himself.
No way! I lift weights every day! I heard that when General Gu used to stay at the capital, he would train for 8 hours a day. It was only then that he managed to develop such a figure. How long do you lift weights now?
Gufu Zhou said, depressed.
About an hour. About an hour.
Lin Qingyu said lightly,
Looks like you need to take care then, General Gu.
They're both trolls to each other, and it's fabulous. It's so fabulous. I'm trying to decide whether I continue listing my videos on Twitch here in reading fun, or do I list them in just chatting? So here's the thing. When I listed them in just chatting the last time we streamed, I got multiple viewers, like they'd come in and out, right? So not a lot of them stayed for long, but they'd come in and out. There was more traffic. But with reading fun, there's no traffic at all. Let me just check and see if there's anyone else reading right now. I'm curious. Or is I looking here? Reading fun. We'll go to this. Open a new. Hope it doesn't hear. You don't hear anything. Okay, the Harry Potter guy is streaming. Ooh, Goosebumps. Say cheese and die. That sounds fun. Ooh, I might go and watch that person later. That sounds interesting. And books. Books is on. Books, brews, and booze. And then those are the only English ones. So there's 4 of us right now, so that's not bad. 6 viewers for Goosebumps, 11 viewers for books. Poor Harry Potter guy. 0 viewers. And that poor guy. I may put him on in the background. I might lose some... Just to give him 1 viewer. You know what the problem is? And I've listened to that one. To the Harry Potter storytime stream. Harry Potter and the... What is he on now? Half-Blood Prince, chapter 24. It's not that his reading isn't bad. His reading is very fluid. But the only problem is his microphone is bad. So his audio setup, and so he's very hard to hear. And there's a lot of ambient noise. So if he were to just fix that, I think he would have a lot more people. Because I know on my podcast there are people waiting for Harry Potter books, and I think that there's always someone willing to listen to Harry Potter audiobooks. Auditory ASMR. I don't think that's quite what you're doing, unless you mean to have it like that. Anyways. But yeah. I'd like to know, I gotta look at the numbers. Do I stay on... Okay, I'll let Lucky Cat decide. Okay, I have my Lucky Cat here. I was just polishing him. Lucky Cat, looking at you. Lucky Cat, if I end this stream with 3 viewers, we'll stay in reading fun. Okay? If I end this stream with no viewers, we'll go over to just chatting. I don't know. That doesn't seem... For the next stream. We'll go over. I don't know. We'll find out. Thank you, Lucky Cat. Mwah. This is my favorite Lucky Cat. Okay. I'm curious about that Goosebumps one. It's got like a little devil horned cat thing, goat. It's got the horns of a goat, the ears of a rabbit, nose of a rabbit, but somehow looks like a cat. I don't know. I have no idea what this is. Anyways, it's interesting though. I'd watch that. Alrighty. Moving right along. And marker. Chapter 61. Those who are not humiliated have already passed through it twice. I wonder if that means, like, you have to go through a lot of shit before you don't care anymore. I wonder if that's it. I don't know. I made that up. I don't know. Oh, excuse me. Lin Qingyu stayed at home for the entire day. There was still no news from the palace. He had even asked Huan Tong to go to Hu Ji's house to inquire, but Hu Ji had yet to return home. Most probably he was still in the Eastern Palace. On the evening of the second day since the incident in the Eastern Palace, Lin Qingyu returned to his shift at the Imperial Hospital. Some of the Imperial physicians who had gone to the Eastern Palace that day had already returned. Every one of them was in a hurry, and they were very tight-lipped about the Crown Prince's situation. Lin Qingyu asked several times, but they all only answered that the Crown Prince had come down with a sudden illness and needed to rest for a while. They must be taking him for an idiot. Although Lin Qingyu couldn't see their prescriptions, based from what was missing from the medicine cabinets, he knew that Xiao Qiang had suffered serious trauma and was bleeding profusely. Most likely he had taken damage to the chest and lungs. On the third day after the incident, Hu Ji finally returned to the Imperial Hospital. He was wearing the same uniform, not washed for 3 days. The sleeves were stained with blood, and he was exhausted to the point of falling into a trance. Lin Qingyu offered to send him back home. In the carriage, Hu Ji told Lin Qingyu that His Highness was not ill, but was injured by a sword. That day, when I arrived at the Eastern Palace, the Crown Prince had already been carried to bed. He was wearing only his sleeping robe with a bloody hole in his chest. His whole body was drenched in blood, but his eyes were wide open and his mind was still clear, though he uttered not a word. Recalling the scene at this time, Hu Ji felt his heart filled with lingering fears. I rushed forward to try and stop the bleeding, but he suddenly grabbed my clothes and I heard him say, "Come back." He then passed out, and even until I left, he has yet to wake. Okay, even though Xiao Cheng's an asshole, and we don't like him, and he's an asshole, that's sad. That's sad. I don't feel bad for the guy, but I feel bad for the situation. You've just been stabbed through the chest by the person you love, who has found out that you betrayed them in the most brutal way possible, killing his entire family and clan.
And yet, almost your final words are, come back.
Yeah, I can see it. It's good writing. I gotta give it to him. Lin Qingyu couldn't care less what Xiao Cheng said before he fell into a coma. Oh my god, you're such a... Here I am having feelings. Lin Qingyu's like, I don't give a fuck. What else? He just wanted to know when Xiao Cheng would die. He just wanted to know when Xiao Cheng would die.
How certain are you of waking the Crown Prince?
He Ji shook his head with a wry smile.
Less than 30%.
30%?
Still too much.
He Ji added.
However, the Crown Prince's left lung has been injured. Even if he is able to escape with his life this time, I am afraid that in the future, medicine shall never be parted from his mouth. He will live on as a medicine pot.
Lin Qingyu still felt unreconciled. What was a mere left lung? If Shen Huixi's sword had moved just a tiny bit more, it would have penetrated Xiao Cheng's heart. This was what he wanted to hear. Lin Qingyu hesitated for a moment and said,
He Ji, would you always do your best to treat a patient, no matter who the patient is?
He Ji said without hesitation.
Of course. This is my way of medicine.
Lin Qingyu didn't say any more. He Ji studied medicine in order to save the dying and the wounded. Even if the patient were a heinous person, he would probably save the person first before turning him over to the authorities. On the other hand, he studied medicine, poison, and goo simply because he liked it. He would even use these to harm people. He respected He Ji's ideas and did not want to ruin He Ji's way of medicine. Besides, the crux of the matter was that even if He Ji had the heart to do something, the other imperial physicians weren't blind. Every bowl of medicine in the Eastern Palace would be tested for poison. Murdering the Crown Prince was a capital offense. Even if it were for the sake of his family, he couldn't do it rashly. Could it be that this could only be left to fate? He Ji was so tired that he couldn't keep his eyes open, and yet he did not forget to warn Lin Qingyu.
By the way, the Emperor has issued a death order. News of the attempted assassination on the Crown Prince must not be leaked. Imperial Physician Lin must not tell this matter to others.
Lin Qingyu nodded and said,
Don't worry. I won't breathe a single word.
Having said that, Lin Qingyu immediately told Gu Fuzhou the news. For the past few days, Gu Fuzhou had been running to his house whenever he had nothing to do. By this point, to say that they're merely adopted brothers... Oh, I missed a word. Start over. Take two. For the past few days, Gu Fuzhou has been running to his house whenever he had nothing to do. By this point, to say that they were merely adopted brothers was simply impossible. However, he wasn't in the right frame of mind to be thinking about it. When Gu Fuzhou learned that Xiao Cheng had a 30% chance of survival, he was not optimistic.
If He Ji says it's 30%, then it's at least 90%. How so? Xiao Cheng is the protagonist of the original book, and protagonists always have a halo around them. If I were to explain it to you, even if a wave of arrows were shot at Xiao Chang, he may emerge unscathed.
Lin Qingyu said,
In short, he's very lucky.
Gu Fuzhou smiled and said,
You could put it that way. Shen Huishi is also a protagonist. Won't he also have a halo? Yeah. Don't look at how miserable he might be now. He definitely won't die. If anyone else were to try to assassinate the crown prince, the best way they could hope to emerge is equally injured. He stabbed Xiao Chang in the chest and still managed to escape unscathed. Wouldn't you call that a halo?
Lin Qingyu was suspicious. Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious. Sorry.
That Shen Huishi could escape from the palace, wasn't it because of his skills?
As the two were talking, Huan Tong came to tell them that an unknown child had come knocking on their door. When he opened the gate, the little boy stuffed a note into his hand without saying a word. By the time he came back to his senses, the child had already disappeared.
Where's the note? Lin Qingyu said. Bring it to me to see.
Only a few words were written on the note. After Lin Qingyu saw it, he immediately ordered,
Prepare the carriage. I'm heading to the Shangcheng temple.
Lin Qingyu changed into his everyday clothes and together with Gu Fuzhou, went to the Changsheng temple. Before getting out of the carriage, Lin Qingyu said,
It might be better that you wait for me in the carriage. Huh? Why? There are a lot of people here. Are you willing to let others see you go out with a widow?
Gu Fuzhou pretended to consider it for a while.
It seems that I'm somewhat willing. It seems that I'm somewhat willing.
Lin Qingyu couldn't help laughing.
Let's go together then.
The autumn rain was falling outside, fluttering, sprinkling, dampening clothes and moistening desires. Gu Fuzhou got out of the carriage first. He opened the umbrella, helping Lin Qingyu down. Lin Qingyu put out his hand on his palm and, borrowing his support, alighted from the carriage. As soon as he stood firm on the ground, he let go of the other's hand. He then heard a cold snort come from behind him.
Such indecent behavior.
Lin Qingyu looked back and saw an old man glaring at them with righteous indignation, as though he'd been made to bear witness to something filthy.
Just you fucking wait.
Gu Fuzhou asked in a low voice,
Who is that? Deputy Censor, Yang Geng.
Yang Geng. Yeah. Gu Fuzhou said leisurely,
He's already so old, but he's still a fifth-rank civil servant like you. If I were him, I would write the word miserable down the length of my trousers in blood.
Yang Geng saw them sheltering under an umbrella together, even huddling close together to whisper to each other. He couldn't make out what they were saying, and they covered their faces with their hands as though wanting to be invisible. Gu Fuzhou called him to a stop.
Young Darren.
All censors were of a somewhat surly nature, and Yang Geng was no exception. With a perpetual expression of slight disgust on his face, he walked up to Gu Fuzhou and saluted.
This official offers his greetings to the general.
Gu Fuzhou asked,
Just who were you calling indecent just now? Naturally, this official was not pertaining to the general. Yang
Geng looked sternly at Lin Qingyu and said,
Imperial Physician Lin, if I remember correctly, it has not yet been a year since young Master Hou departed from this world. Should you still be well within... You should still be well within the period of mourning. How can you be so intimate with other men?
Gufu Zhou said,
Imperial Physician Lin is the general's adopted brother. An adopted brother is still a male outsider. According to what you said, the Emperor is also a male outsider. Imperial Physician Lin goes to examine His Majesty's pulse every day. Are you calling the Emperor indecent?
Young Gung glared straight at him. Flustered and exasperated, he said,
The general is twisting my words and forcing logic. How could this be the same? How is it different?
Gufu Zhou said indifferently.
Imperial Physician Lin's position is bestowed by the Emperor, and the Emperor did so heedless of his identity as a male wife. Since Yang Daran feels so strongly about this matter, might it not be better to tell the Emperor and have His Majesty relieve Imperial Physician Lin from his post? This...
Yang Geng was struck speechless. There was no one in the palace who didn't know that it was thanks to Lin Qingyu that the Emperor managed to awaken. Asking His Majesty to dismiss Lin Qingyu was akin to threatening the Emperor's well-being. Although the Dayu wouldn't kill an imperial censor for offering advice to the Emperor, no one would dare say this to His Majesty at this time. Lin Qingyu said,
General, we have urgent business to attend to. Let's go.
The two were walking towards the main hall. Just as Gufu Zhou was about to curse out that young Gung, he heard Lin Qingyu snort coldly.
Fucking fool.
Gufu Zhou was momentarily taken aback, thinking he had heard it wrong.
What did you just call him? Fucking fool? What did you just call him? Fucking fool.
Gufu Zhou was shocked into incoherency.
How can you talk like that? I learned it from you.
Lin Qingyu narrowed his eyes at him.
What? You can say it, but I can't? Of course! Great beauties mustn't use such foul language.
Lin Qingyu said disdainfully,
I'm going to explode.
Gufu Zhou blamed himself bitterly.
I have brought you down.
Better way to say that is, what is it? It's less of, like, I brought you down not in mood. It's more like, I've been a bad influence. That kind of thing. On such a rainy day, the number of On such a rainy day, the number of pilgrims in Changsheng Temple was much less than usual. There were only a few people burning incense and praying in front of the golden Buddha statue. Lin Qingyu looked around and saw nothing out of the ordinary. The person who wrote the note invited him to meet at Changsheng Temple. It was unlikely that he meant the main hall. At this time, a little monk stepped forward and asked if they would like to offer incense. Lin Qingyu asked for 3 sticks of incense. Gufu Zhou asked,
What blessing would you like to play? What blessing would you like to pray for?
Even in front of the Buddha, Lin Qingyu made no attempt to hide his malice.
I pray that Xiao Cheng will die soon.
Gufu Zhou smiled and said,
How are you so cute? However, praying at Changcheng Temple doesn't seem very fitting.
Lin Qingyu lit the incense and asked casually,
Have you tried it?
Yes, Gufu Zhou said absent-mindedly.
If prayers here came true, you wouldn't have sad... If prayers here came true, you wouldn't have sad moments.
Aww. How can they... What? How do you go from, I pray that Xiao Cheng will die, to, how are you so cute? I prayed for you to be happy at all times. How do you do that in the same sentence? That is skill. That is straight up skill. That's so cute. Lin Qingyu bumped his chest and looked up at the person beside him. Gufu Zhou didn't seem to realize what he'd said, so he looked at Lin Qingyu and asked,
"Why are you looking at me like that?"
"It's nothing." Lin Qingyu lowered his eyes.
"I'll go have a look at the side hall. The last time I met him at Shangcheng Temple, it was in the side hall."
Gufu Zhou nodded.
"You go."
As he was not familiar with Shen Huishi, it was not appropriate to meet at this time.
"I'll go to the back hall and see if Xu Jianyang is there." "The national teacher?" Lin Qingyu frowned. "Are you going to tell him about yourself?" "I'm not going to go that far. At most, I'll ask him for a divination."
Lin Qingyu and Gufu Zhou separated and went to the side hall alone. The side hall was even more deserted than the main hall. There wasn't even a single monk standing in attendance. Lu Wancheng's tablet and ever-burning lamp were enshrined here. As Lin Qingyu was adding lamp oil to the ever-burning lamp, he caught sight from out of the corner of his eyes. A figure hiding behind a stone pillar. Lin Qingyu turned around and said,
"I'm the one you're here for."
Shen Huishi walked out from behind the stone pillar and said with a numb expression,
"Imperial Physician Lin."
Shen Huishi was wearing the rough sewn clothing of an ordinary citizen. His face was covered with a layer of dust, stubble covered his chin, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked extremely down and depressed. Who knows how long since he last slept? Lin Qingyu asked,
Where have you been these past few days?"
Shen Huishi didn't seem to hear Lin Qingyu's question. He said, although speaking to himself,
"Thank you, Imperial Physician Lin, for telling me about the Heavenly Prison Sect."
Lin Qingyu asked,
"Does Xiao Cheng's injury have something to do with you?"
Hearing the word Xiao Cheng, Shen Huishi's eyes moved, but he still didn't answer the question.
I asked Imperial Physician Lin to take care of Judega. Please let him return to Xiaozhou, to Xuzhou. Return him to a peaceful life. What about you? Where are you going?
Lin Qingyu said.
Can you escape the pursuit of the Tianjin camp?
The corner of Shen Huishi's lips twitched, revealing an ugly smile.
Are you concerned about me?
He slowly lowered his head.
No one has ever been concerned about me except my family. Imperial Physician Lin, if I stop holding myself cheap, will you treat me as a friend?
Lin Qingyu spoke one word.
Maybe. Maybe.
A gleam of light flashed in Shen Huishi's eyes, but he quickly returned to numbness.
Unfortunately, it's too late.
Lin Qingyu made no comment. He took out from his sleeve a medicine box he had prepared earlier that morning.
This. Please accept it.
What is it?
A medicine that fakes death. You can use it to get away if necessary.
Shen Huishi put away the medicine box.
Thank you. Then...
He stared intently at Lin Qingyu.
I'm leaving.
Lin Qingyu watched him leave. Suddenly he said,
Did you miss that night? Or did your heart go soft?
Shen Huishi paused. He shook his head in silence, and step by step, he walked out of the side hall. Until the end, he didn't tell Lin Qingyu the answer. For a while, Lin Qingyu remained there by himself. When he went out, he saw Gufu Zhou standing under the eaves, looking at the hazy curtain of rain, seemingly lost in thought. Raindrops dripped from the eaves and splattered against the mossy stone steps, startling Gufu Zhou out of his thoughts.
It's over? Did you see him?
Lin Qingyu nodded.
He said some useless nonsense.
He paused, then said,
Well, not completely nonsense. In short, Shen Huishi has to leave the capital.
Gufu Zhou smiled and said,
Xiao Chang will definitely go to look for him when he wakes up. One runs, the other chases. Even with wings, they could never escape each other.
Lin Qingyu said, displeased,
Do you still think Xiao Chang will wake up? Whether Xiao Chang lives or dies, we have to prepare for the worst. The worst is that he lives and remains crown prince. In that case, we can't touch the emperor.
But the emperor has obviously begun to have thoughts about him. Maybe one day he would be asked to remain and serve him in bed. Ugh. It wasn't only Gufu Zhou who needed a second marriage. He needed it too.
Then the matter of our second marriage will be put on the agenda,
Gufu Zhou confirmed again.
Qingyu, do you really not want to take me as your wife?
He's so thirsty, it's awesome. Lin Qingyu weighed the matter over and over.
No, I don't.
It was not only that he didn't want to. Even if he did, a first-rank general being a wife to a fifth-rank imperial physician, this would be a direct provocation to the censorate of the entire Dayu. Gufu Zhou didn't give up.
You really don't want to? Would you rather die than take me as your wife?
Gufu Zhou couldn't figure out Lin Qingyu's thoughts.
Could it be that you're willing to be my wife? That can't be, right? Didn't you always think that it's a humiliation for a man to bear bridal attire?
Lin Qingyu said indifferently.
Humiliating or not, I've already gone through it twice. Twice?
Gufu Zhou said in surprise.
How did it become twice?
Lin Qingyu was momentarily dazed. He then chuckled.
I remembered it wrong. Qingyu?
Lin Qingyu's smile hadn't been a sneer. Rather, it carried a bit of gentleness and calmness. But for some reason, Gufu Zhou felt that his smile was a little sad. Yeah, I want Gufu Zhou to find out about the second time that he wore his bridal attire for him while he was on his deathbed. Oh my gosh, I really want him to know that one and have him freak out because that'd be hilarious. He'd be so moved he'd marry him a fifth time. The author has something to say. The atmosphere is a little sad, so let's talk about something amusing to lighten the mood. Where is our salted fish gong from? Purely for entertainment question, but the answer will be revealed later. I'm going to butcher these names. I'm not even going to try, because I would just butcher them. 4 places. I have no idea. Alrighty. Last chapter for this evening. Let's get to it. Let me hydrate. My throat is scratchy. Why it is that I insist on reading so many books that have an all-male cast, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Deep breaths. And marker. Chapter 62.
Then I'm not serious about proposing.
Oh, I feel like there's going to be some salt in this. After the attempt at Xiao Cheng's life, the emperor had to force himself to handle government affairs despite being ill. His headache was getting worse and worse. He was now dependent on the Lin family's acupuncture treatments to ease the pain. Every time it was Lin Qingyu's turn to be on duty, he was almost always on standby in the emperor's palace. Even if while he was on break, but in the palace grounds, he would be summoned by the emperor from time to time. In the eyes of the emperor, Lin Qingyu had a gentle temperament. No, he fucking doesn't. He never said anything unnecessary, and he even carried a light medicinal fragrance on his body. So absurd. Hi! Absurd. I like it. Absurd. Hi, Atkinson. Lovely to see you. I do get it. That's cute. This is so absurd. This story is absurd. Thanks so much for coming to check in on me. I hope everything is well and good with you. I'm gonna play a game and listen to you. Oh, fun. Because we're getting to a funny bit. This whole story is funny. Okay. I love that. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Let's see here. I love that the emperor thinks that he thinks that Lin Qingyu has a gentle temperament. Meanwhile, Lin Qingyu in his head, I'm going to kill all of you. And he means it. In the eyes of the emperor, Lin Qingyu had a gentle temperament. He never said anything unnecessary, and he even carried a light medicinal fragrance on his body. It's probably poison. This same kind of fragrance was also found on Chu Jingdi, but on Chu Jingdi, he found it pungent, but on Lin Qingyu, it became refreshing. That is the power of a pretty face. Especially when massaging the acupuncture points on his head for him, the beauty would lower his eyes and remain silent throughout. His flawless skin glowed faintly under the palace lanterns. He's not looking at you because he's imagining all the ways he could, kill you. Seeing so much of Lin Qingyu, he now found the other beauties in his harem dull and boring. It was a pity that he was in a bad mood right now. With such a big incident befalling the Eastern Palace, he simply didn't have the energy to consider this matter. A big thing happened in the big East Palace. He didn't have the heart to think about it at all. During the times his breath is taken away by Lin Qingyu's beauty, all he can do was heave a sigh. You disgusting, dirty old man. Nowadays, he doesn't bother having his concubines attend to him in his illness. He left only Xu Ying and Lin Qingyu, surrounding himself with silence. On this day, Lin Qingyu was ordered to go to the emperor's palace, but was stopped by Xu Ying at the door. Imperial Physician Lin, the emperor is discussing business inside. Please wait for a while.
Is the Prime Minister inside?
It was the Prime Minister who was in charge of running the government these days. Any important matter that the ministers had to report to His Majesty were all conveyed through him. Xu Yang and Lin Qingyu had been serving the emperor together for a long time, and they have gradually become more familiar with each other. Xu Ying didn't hide it from him. It's the leader of the Tianjin camp, Shidiran, Lin Qingyu said indifferently.
I see.
It must be because of the assassination attempt on Xiao Cheng. As soon as Xiao Cheng's incident happened, Shen Huishi disappeared. The Tianjin camp would follow this trail and track him down. No one knows how their investigation has been going. After Shidiran withdrew, Lin Qingyu entered the emperor's sleeping chambers. The emperor sat at the dragon's desk, a solemn expression on his face. It seemed that Tenji camp hadn't brought him any good news. The emperor waved off Lin Qingyu's salute and said feebly, What? Feebly? Thank you.
I have a headache again. Come and give me a massage.
Ugh. I really need to get an ick face for my for my avatar. Ugh. Lin Qingyu went to stand behind the emperor and massaged his forehead for him. The emperor's expression softened a little, and he closed his eyes to enjoy it.
Your technique is really good.
Lin Qingyu said,
This official learned all these from my father. My technique is nothing compared to my father's. Lin Rushan?
The emperor remembered his devoted former Yanpan.
He is a person of true talent, only that he is a bit presumptuous. It was not wrong of the crown prince to punish him, but it is indeed a waste of talent to prevent him from practicing his craft. Right now, the Imperial Hospital is in need of people. Convey my order. Lin Rushan shall be reinstated to his post as Yanpan of the Imperial Hospital.
Lin Qingyu wanted to kneel down to offer his thanks on behalf of his father, but the emperor grabbed his hand.
No need to be too polite. Continue your massage for me.
Ugh. Xiao Qiang was not yet dead, and the emperor could not die either. Lin Qingyu suppressed his disgust and pretended to be respectful and obedient. Thanks to his massage, the emperor's head no longer hurt so much. He once again unfurled the reports and forced himself to read them. Lin Qingyu said, Your Majesty is in ill health. Mental stress must be avoided. The emperor sighed.
Now that the crown prince is also ill, if I do not concern myself with these things, who will concern themselves over these things for me?
The crown prince isn't the emperor's only son. The emperor narrowed his eyes dangerously.
What did you say?
Lin Qingyu made himself appear to panic. He knelt down and said,
This official spoke out of turn. I ask the emperor to forgive me.
The emperor looked at the beauty, who was so frightened that his face paled. He felt that he himself might have been overly suspicious. He was a mere imperial physician. What schemes could he possibly get up to? Keep thinking that. It'll do us well in the end.
Get up. What you said was not unreasonable. It is a pity that the two remaining princes...
Thinking of this, the emperor's head began to ache again, and the words on the reports began to blur. Seeing his bitter expression, Lin Qingyu said,
Your Majesty's health is the most important thing. It would be better for the emperor to take a rest first.
The emperor nodded.
All right. I will have to rely on you to help me get ready for bed.
Ugh. Lin Qingyu stared at the emperor's throat, because he's going to slit it.
Yes.
Lin Qingyu helped the emperor up and walked towards the dragon bed. Suddenly, he said,
There is one more matter this official wishes to apologize for.
Oh, sorry, no, wrong voice. Suddenly, he said,
There is one matter this official wishes to apologize for and seek the emperor's punishment. Oh? What crime have you committed?
Lin Qingyu said,
Recently, my mother has been feeling unwell.
Lin Qingyu? Actually, that's probably a fair assessment. because he wants to kill this entire royal family, quite frankly. So lynching is not off the table. Now that you say that, that's all that I'm going to hear. Lin Qingyu. Yeah. Lin Qingyu. Lin Qingyu said, Recently, my mother has been feeling unwell. This official and his righteous brother, General Gu, went to Chengxing Temple to offer incense and pray for my mother. At the entrance of the temple, we met the imperial censor Yang Darren. Yang Darren said that a male wife is an inauspicious thing, and that this official was still within the period of mourning, and thus should not be so close to other men. If this official brings any ill to General Gu, even if this official were to die 1,000 deaths, it would not suffice. The emperor let out a groan in his heart. The tragic situation of the Nan'an Hou's mansion was vivid in everyone's mind, and the Nan'an Hou has only slightly improved after Lin Qingyu departed from the mansion. With regards to these kinds of things, it was better to believe than not. Withdraw first, the emperor said. Let Xu Yang come in and serve me. Lin Qingyu walked out of the bedchamber. He saw Xu Ying hurriedly approach and asked, Eunuch Zhu, why are you in such a hurry? Xu Ying said happily, The Crown Prince! The Crown Prince is awake! Lin Qingyu laughed. This is indeed a happy event. He don't fucking mean it. He doesn't mean it. Back at the Imperial Hospital, Hu Ji told Lin Qingyu that although the Crown Prince was awake, most of his body had broken down to the extent that to what degree he'd be able to recover would depend on his recuperation in the days to come. When he woke up, he became even more temperamental and irritable than before. One concubine who had been serving him by his sickbed was only slightly clumsy, but was sent to the cold palace to spend her days together with side concubine Liu. So way up north. Get the fuck out. That's not fair. He's an arsehole. Hu Ji had also seen Ji Deran of the Tanji camp in the Eastern Palace, and even overheard a conversation between him and the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince seemed to not even be at all interested in the affairs of the court. Heedless of anything, he desperately wanted to capture the assassin and bring him back to the capital. The Crown Prince repeatedly emphasized that he must be kept alive. After Lin Qingyu left the palace, he went directly to the general's mansion. Yan Yin welcomed him into the mansion and said, The general is training at the military grounds. Oh my god, they're such trolls to each other, and it's fabulous. When Lin Qingyu came to the military grounds, he saw Gufu Zhou with his upper body bare, his stomach to the ground, his body in a straight line. He propped himself up and down, muttering under his breath, 77, 78, 79. General, Yan Yin said, Imperial Physician Lin is here. 80! Gufu Zhou breathed a sigh of relief, got up and took the shirt handed to him by a servant. He put it on carelessly and joked, I was seen by Imperial Physician Lin. How embarrassing. Lin Qingyu's bad mood at learning of Xiao Qing waking up from his coma eased a bit. I've helped you take a bath. There is no part of you I haven't seen. Gufu Zhou sent the servant away and said, That's the body from the past. You haven't seen my current body before. I can't have a look yet. Gufu Zhou complained.
You were the one who said my abs were getting loose. You can you can look once I've trained them back into shape.
Gufu Zhou wiped his sweat with the hem of his clothes.
I'm exhausted. I'm so exhausted. I used to be able to play ball for hours on end and still not get tired. These years are so unforgiving.
Lin Qingyu interrupted him.
Xiao Cheng is awake.
Gufu Zhou raised his eyebrows, not surprised at all.
What did I tell you? Xiao Cheng has a halo. He's not going to die that easily. But we aren't completely defeated. The Emperor might not be able to tolerate a weak and sickly crown prince who has no intention to govern. What happens in the future depends on whether Xiao Cheng can strive for himself.
But these can only be seen as time went on. Lin Qingyu thought for a while and said,
As for our second marriage, we should do it as soon as possible.
Gufu Zhou paused, and the corner of his mouth raised in a smile.
Now you're in such a hurry?
Thinking about the Emperor's various actions, Lin Qingyu said,
Since it has been decided, delaying it might simply lead to more trouble. Or have you changed your mind and want to marry the 7th princess? Of course not! But have you really thought about it?
Lin Qingyu asked back.
Do I seem like I haven't thought well and good about? What I mean is, have you ever thought about what we're going to do after we get married?
Gufu Zhou's tone was a little unnatural.
How would we get along?
Lin Qingyu was stunned by this question, and he said hesitantly,
We're getting married because we have no choice. How we get along will naturally be how we will get along in the future. How we get along now will naturally be how we get along in the future.
Gufu Zhou pouted and said in a low voice,
If you say so, then I won't propose seriously.
Lin Qingyu didn't understand.
Propose what? Here, take this.
Gufu Zhou flicked a shot with his hand, and a golden object slid across the air, which Lin Qingyu caught firmly. It was a ring of pure gold, much thinner than the ornamental thumb rings often worn by men. It had a simple relief engraved on it, small and delicate. Lin Qingyu cast a confused look at Gufu Zhou.
What does this mean?
Gufu Zhou explained.
In my hometown, it is a tradition to wear a ring on your ring finger when you decide to get married. Is that so?
Lin Qingyu often heard Gufu Zhou talk about his hometown. It must be such a bizarre world. In summer, there was something called an air conditioner, which saved Gufu Zhou's life for the better half of every year. In his hometown, it would only take an hour to travel the distance between Yongliang and the capital. There, men who were 18 years old were adults, but they couldn't get married until they were 22. If he and Gufu Zhou went back there, no one would recognize their marriage. Since they met, it had been Gufu Zhou following their customs. Occasionally, he should respect the rules of Gufu Zhou's hometown. Lin Qingyu picked up the ring and was about to put it on his ring finger, but was loudly stopped by Gufu Zhou.
What are you doing?
Lin Qingyu asked, puzzled.
Didn't you say I have to wear it?
Gufu Zhou couldn't help laughing.
You can't put it on yourself. Ask me to help you put it on. Is this also a rule in your hometown? That's right. So troublesome.
Lin Qingyu stretched out his left hand.
Then, you come and do it.
Gufu Zhou's expression suddenly became serious. He lowered his head, and for a while he stared at Lin Qingyu's hand. He first wiped his hands with a handkerchief and then carefully picked up the ring. His hand seemed to be shaking a little. He was nervous. Lin Qingyu had never seen Gufuzhou take something so seriously before. It was as if he was accomplishing the most important thing in his life. Seeing him like this, Lin Qingyu also started feeling nervous. It must be because Gufuzhou held the ring for so long, the metal had grown a bit warm. He slowly pushed it onto his finger, leaving a dazzling afterimage in the sunlight. It was a strange feeling. After putting on the ring, the two did not speak for a while. Lin Qingyu calmed down and asked, "Is it all right now?" "Wait. At a moment like this, I ought to say something a bit pretentious. Let me think about it." Gufuzhou took a deep breath, grabbed Lin Qingyu's hand and placed it on his chest. He said, voice filled with emotion, "Then, Qingyu, I entrust the rest of my life to you." The rest of his life? Not marrying a wife and having children, but staying with Gufuzhou till the end. Making jokes, laughing and cursing, occasionally conspiring to do bad things together, and supporting each other for the rest of their lives. It seemed acceptable. Hearing Lin Qingyu's agreement, Gufuzhou couldn't help reaching for a mile after having gotten an inch. "Then, promise me, even if I'm bald, fat, and without any abdominal muscles, you won't dislike me, okay?" Lin Qingyu quickly calmed down and mercilessly took back his hand. "Impossible." The author has something to say. Salted Fish Jiang, a male high school student who travels to a different world and still tries to maintain the traditions of his hometown. This is the ring on his finger on the cover. So that's it. Awesome. Okay, so that was, oh my goodness, Lucky Cat came through. We will stay with in the reading fun. So I've got 3 people here. I know we're lurking, but I think we could maybe do a raid if I don't screw this up again. I'm not particularly good at this. Please bear with me. I kind of wanted to check out the Goosebumps person. The Dunwich sandwich. And it's done, not dumb. Let's see here. Okay. All right. I hate doing raids. This should be known because they never turn out well for me. Like literally ever. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to Sorry. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to pop in on the Dunwich sandwich. Also doing reading fun. Currently has 4. Let's do this. Hope it turns out. Please, dear God, fingers crossed, everything goes okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me, and I hope you'll tune in again next time, and please be lurking, and thank you so much. I love you, okay? We're going to go into this as soon as raid's ready, and raid now. Okay, we're ready to go. Let's go. Let's go. It also occurs to me that I can't...
Later, Bird said, slapping Greg on the shoulder as he headed away. The 3 friends split up, running in different directions, across lawns and driveways, heading home. Wait. A raid? Who's raiding me? I'm being raided?
Yay!
I'm being raided right now? Who's raiding me? Who are you? Who are you? Who is this? Who are you, sir? Are you real? Are you a real person? Oh! Oh, you're real! Okay, cool. Holy shit! Well, hello! Well, hello! What a pleasant surprise! I have yet to be rated as I'm reading. Well, hello. I'm Dunny. Uh, I'm this weird goat potato right now. Uh, I like to I don't know. I don't know what to say. I never assumed that anyone would raid me. So I never worked on like a pitch. But yeah, no. Do I get non-real people? Non-corporeal entities that just manifest? No, I think we got a bot like one time. I think there was one time where we got a bot and they were like, hello, I am here to. They were. Hold on a second. Let me begin myself. They were like, hello, I am here to help grow your brand. Do you want big numbers, big streams, big likes? I will help you. And I'm like, you're a bot. Please leave. But yeah, like I said, no way. That's really cool. Oh, sorry, I'm just stretching while I have the opportunity. But yeah, you're coming in at kind of the tail end of the stream. We're about maybe a few chapters away from finishing Say Cheese and Die. I personally, oh, Serdd is another reader. Cool. Oh my god, there's other readers. Oh my god, I'm meeting other readers. Holy shit. I kind of thought I was alone on that. But yeah, I started streaming with games and stuff, and I was like, I don't know, this is fun and all, but I the most I enjoyed my time was when we were doing like visual novels and stuff, and I got to read, and I just really enjoyed doing that instead. And so I just decided to do that. So I drew up all these assets. I drew the character. Um, I have a couple other screens. We have my like starting soon screen, my screen, my BRB. Let's see. We also have another set that I use. This was the first one that I used. Yeah, I'm kind of something like a demon goat. This is kind of the main like persona that I use most of the time. We also have let me pull him out. Let me pull out the captain. We also have this guy. This was the original avatar that I was using to read with. He's like a deep sea isopod, and the whole bit was that we were on a boat, like a deep sea, like sunken boat. And then I would just read from stuff that I found down here. Oh, thank you, machine elves. Thank you, thank you so much. But yeah, and then the idea was, and then I started kind of coming up with other ideas, and then I did this background, where then we switched over to the goat character. Hold on, let me put that away. And then we switched over to the goat character. And what I'm planning to do next, like one of my next like to-dos, is I want to make, because I picked up some Star Trek novels that I really want to read on stream because I think it'd be fun. I want to make like, I'm working on it right now, like an Enterprise themed a science fiction Enterprise themed background, so that we have a background for like science fiction. Because I'm thinking we'll use the science fiction background for like science fiction stories and stuff, and then we've got this for kind of general fiction, and then we've got this for like spooky horror stories, and then and then I'm thinking that I might make like other little potato shaped avatars to use as well, because I'm so terrible about like making my mind about anything. Oh really? Technically Goosebumps and Star Trek books will get you in trouble on Twitch by reading them. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Oh really? Is that so? Yeah, I didn't know that. Is there like a copyright to it? Just read my fanfics. You have to read books from public domain. Oh, interesting. Well, there's plenty of stuff in public domain. I imagine we could probably swing it. Or from a reader that has the rights and can give you permission. Oh, from the writer who can give you permission. Not sure. Someone's reading Harry Potter right now. I don't know. I mean, I tried doing some research on this before I started streaming read streams. And it seemed like, as far as copyright is concerned, it seems like that if it's still kind of performative nature, and adding commentary and stuff, like you can kind of get away with it. But I wouldn't want to do anything that would get me in trouble for sure. That does present me with a quandary to ponder on. I say. You're not affiliate yet, so you won't be on the radar because you're not making money off of it. Ah, that's true. And my Danmei isn't licensed, but it is published. Gray area, Jazz Hands. What is Danmei? Tell me what Danmei is. When you get to affiliate, that changes things. Interesting. I guess I just never really pictured myself even getting to the point getting to the point where I would even get to affiliate. I need to have more faith in myself, dang it. Literally email R.L. Stein. I'm an affiliate streamer, so I have to read books that other authors have given me permission. Mr. Stein, I'm a goat that likes to read. Chinese web novel, usually male-male romance. This, let me put the... Well, first, okay, before we move on to anything else, does anyone want me to finish the book before I go into, like, discussing other, options? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and finish the, let's see. Just a friendly reminder, tip for you, us readers need to stick together. Aw, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I had no idea there were other, like, reader streamers. And this is because, like, I wasn't really reading too much before, and this has been really getting me back into it. So I've been having a good time, and I want to be sure that I can still do read streams, but I also don't want to get myself into trouble. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish Say Cheese and Die.